Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome. Happy December 1st, if you can believe that. Oh, my goodness. My name is Katie Earle. I'm the coordinator of the University Express program, and I work for the Erie County Department of Senior Services. And we're here virtually with Angela Keppel, who has been with us for a while, and just always a blast to work with her. So we hope you enjoyed our little chit-chat this morning, but we're just thankful that she's giving us her time. So before we get started, because as always, we have a couple new folks, and I want to make sure everybody is able to participate as best they can. So you just heard me say we're recording this session. I will try to post it on our website by tomorrow if all goes as planned. And there are other people in here, as you've heard me say. If you were on early, it's just you might think you're the only one, but I promise you there are others. It's just we're in anonymous participation mode, so only Angela and I can see everyone who's in here. So as she goes through her presentation, we're hoping you have a lot of questions and comments, and type those right into your Q&A as soon as you think of them, and then we'll get to as many as we can at the end. So if you're new, you access your Q&A panel likely on the right-hand side of your screen. When you logged on today, it might have popped up on the right. You just have to hit that little caret or arrow to expand it. But then you should see your text box, and you can send your questions to me. You might also see in the lower right hand of your WebEx screen, you'll see a square with a question mark. That's your Q&A. And then if you're on a tablet or smartphone, poke or touch your screen. That will bring up your control panel. You'll see a button with 3 dots. Click on that, and there's your Q&A. So again, please send us your questions so we can try to make it as interactive as possible. So I'd like to thank the sponsors of our program, which is my Department of Senior Services, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Western New York, Excelsior Orthopedics, and Wegmans for everything they do to make the program possible. And Senior Services is here. If you have questions about program services or benefits, or even if you're not sure where to start, we're a great place to start. So we're at 858-8526, and I will introduce Angela before I turn it over. Angela Keppel is an urban planner and history enthusiast, a lifelong Buffalonian. She lives in the juxtaposition between where we've been and where we're going as a city. She runs Discovering Buffalo one street at a time, where she blogs about Buffalo streets and how they got their names. She's been with us many times doing that. And she works as a project planner with Buffalo Place for the Downtown Business District. Everyone, thank you for being here. Angela, thank you. And it's all yours. You are now on mute.
Thanks, Katie. So as Katie said, I was born in Am I muted? Can you guys hear me?
Now you're good. Yep.
Oh, okay. It came across my screen. It said you were muted. Sorry. And so I went to UB for planning school. Since my graduation in 2009 from planning school, I've worked as an urban planner all across Western New York in different municipalities. And for the last 4.5 years, I've worked for Buffalo Place, which is the downtown business district. So you've probably, if you've heard me speak before, you've heard me talk about history, because I run the Buffalo Streets blog, where I talk about how streets got their names. But today we're going to talk a little bit more about kind of the things I do in my day job with urban planning and projects that are happening. Most of these are not projects I'm directly involved with, but I am very interested in projects. So I attend a lot of public meetings, and I just kind of keep on top of what's going on. And so putting together the list of projects I was going to talk about today was kind of difficult because there's so many. And so I want to make sure that at the end we have some time to talk about if there's a specific project you would like to know about, let us know in the question and answer box. And then if we don't get to them all, you can always email me and I can give you information or send you in the right direction. So we're going to talk about, I think, about 20 projects today, things that have happened kind of in the last decade. So these are kind of the 20 major projects that I kind of think of. Keep in mind that things are under construction, might not end up happening, sometimes because of the pandemic, unfortunately, or sometimes, as we know all too well in Buffalo, sometimes projects just don't happen. And I'd like you all to read this headline from October 2007. The revised Bass Pro Store is called a done deal. If you weren't in Buffalo in 2007 and that era, you're lucky that you probably didn't have to hear about Bass Pro. The store was kind of heralded as the thing that was going to save Buffalo. It was going to be located in the former Memorial Auditorium. Then they were going to take down the Odd to build a new store. There was lots of arguing back and forth about what was going to happen. Headline, we still don't have a Bass Pro, although I think we're better for it. And so, so now what did we get instead of Bass Pro? So they did end up demolishing the Odd, and that left behind a big hole. On the left here, that's a picture of me standing in front of the pit, the hole that was the Odd. If you're a fan of the show Parks and Recreation, you'll remember that there was the pit. And so back when they demolished the Odd, I used to call this our pit, and I would pose as Leslie Knope, the character from the TV show. So that picture's there. And they've kind of divided it into like 4 parts where the Odd was. And so the first phase can be seen here, is the recreated canal space. This was where the Erie Canal came through. And so they recreated the footprint of the canal. And in the summer and warmer months, it is water. And then in the winter, there normally is ice skating. Unfortunately, this year, they've announced that they will not be opening the ice because of the pandemic. But it's a really great place. Usually you can see there's crowds of people skating. One thing that's really cool here is that since the Odd was here and it's where the Sabres played, you can actually skate on the area that was center ice for hockey. If you're not a hockey fan, it was also center court for when the Buffalo Braves played there. But it's just a really nice public space. So the second part of the Odd block is the Explore and More Museum. It's formally known as Explore and More, the Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Children's Museum. The museum first opened as Explore and More in East Aurora in 1904. Offered children's programming down at Canalside starting in 2007, and they eventually realized that they wanted to be downtown as well. So the new museum they built is 43,000 square feet, which is 7 times bigger than their original space that they had in East Aurora. The museum focuses on children from birth to age 12. They broke ground on this site in 2017, and it opened in summer of 2019. The museum is really unique. It tells a lot of Buffalo stories. There's exhibits about the Erie Canal, local agriculture, and how your food gets to the grocery store, and things about local sports, teaching the children about the region through play. Also in the building, there is a branch of the Buffalo store, and then there's a cafe called the Low Bridge Cafe. The third part of the Odd block is the development site. This site is going to be developed by Sinatra and Company. Right now, it's just an empty lot. They are calling the development Heritage Point. It is planned to include 2 buildings. This picture is a rendering of what the buildings may look like. The buildings are expected to be 6 stories tall and contain about 103,000 square feet of space. They plan to include a food hall, kind of like Expo that's on Main Street in the theater district, retail on the first floor, and then the upper floors would be office, and then 54 apartments. We're scheduled to break ground right when the pandemic hit. I haven't heard any local updates, but we're still hoping that this project will proceed once things kind of get back to normal. The fourth bit of the Odd site is the North Odd block. This part is still just a pit currently. Erie Canal Harbor has worked on some preliminary conceptual designs that include a variety of buildings. So these brown kind of shapes, those are the buildings. And then in the center, there would be kind of a piazza, a plaza area, making sure that those areas are still open to the public. They're hoping for retail and restaurants along the canal there, the canal, the blue. And then there, because it is a pit, they would be able to put parking below grade. So to allow parking for the site and for the area. These plans were announced last December, so it is possible that things will change based on the pandemic, but they are still moving forward with some more firm design plan. So now we're going to cross Marine Drive to the rest of Canalside. As many of you probably know, Canalside has been very successful during the summer months with lots of programming. They do concerts, history tours, kayaking, and then there have been 2 new buildings that were recently built. The first of the new buildings is this heritage carousel. The carousel is a vintage park-style menagerie carousel that was built in 1924 by Spillman Engineering in North Tonawanda. Some of you may know that North Tonawanda was kind of famous for carousels. There is a carousel museum, the Herschel Carousel Museum up in North Tonawanda that still exists. This carousel was used for some years, but it has been in storage for decades. And it was purchased in 2016 by a Buffalo group with the hopes of bringing it to Canalside. They're in the process of restoring the carousel, which you can see in this picture. She is painting one of the horses. And then construction of the outer building, which is shown here in the other picture, is almost finished. This picture is actually from maybe September. It's enclosed now. One of the things that's also cool about the building is that Tesla was able to donate solar panels. So it will be a solar powered carousel. And so the sides will all open up for the summertime, and then it'll be closed in the winter to allow for year-round use. I believe that the carousel $1 per ride. They have plans to keep it cheap so that it's accessible to everyone. They're planning to open next spring. The other new building down at Canalside is the Longshed Building. This building is designed to look like one of the old canal era buildings. Back then, Buffalo was the frontier, and I think this building really captures that feel. The building will serve for the next few years as a location for the Buffalo Maritime Center. They will be using the space to build a replica of the Seneca Chief. The Seneca Chief was the first boat to travel the Erie Canal in October of 1825. Governor Clinton, Mayor Wilkeson of the city of Buffalo, and other dignitaries traveled on the Seneca Chief from Buffalo to New York City. They carried a bucket of Lake Erie water to New York, where they dumped it into the Atlantic Ocean. And then the ship then traveled back with a bucket of ocean water that they dumped into the lake. They called this event the Wedding of the Waters, which celebrated the opening of the canal. So the replica that they're building, you can see some of the layout of it in this picture. They will finish it in 2025 to celebrate the 200th anniversary of the Erie Canal. And if you're interested in volunteering and helping build the ship, they are looking for volunteers, the Buffalo Maritime Center. So across from Canalside is HarborCenter. This was formerly the site of the Webster Block historically, which was warehouses and storage for canal goods that were shipping on the canal back in the 1800s. Those buildings were demolished at some point, and it had been a parking lot since at least the 1950s, I believe. So in 2013, the city of Buffalo put out an RFP to redevelop the site. Terry Pagula, who is the owner of the Sabres and the Bills, was the winning developer for the site. And they developed the $170 million HarborCenter, which opened in 2014. The project was one of the most expensive development single buildings in Buffalo history. The building's 20 stories tall and contains a 750-car parking ramp, a Marriott hotel, a Tim Hortons, retail shops called The Shops at Canalside, 716 restaurant, and 2 full-scale hockey rinks. One of the rinks has an 1,800 person seating capacity, and the other has 150 seats. The rinks are home to the Buffalo Junior Sabres, the Golden Griffs from Canisius College, and the Erie Cats from ECC. They also play a bunch of tournaments here. It's become really common to see hockey kids waiting for the train around the hotels on Saturday mornings. You can always tell they're hockey kids because they have the bags that are like as big as them to hold all their gear. And there's also classrooms and sports training facilities, physical therapy facilities to provide sports medicine for the athletes. And then in 2019, the naming rights for the building were sold to the Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine, and the building became LECOM HarborCenter. The final building down at Canalside is One Canalside. This is the former Donovan State Office Building. When I was 20, I interned for Sam Hoyt, who was assemblyman at the time in this building, and it was a pretty lame 1960s era boring office building back then. And it was converted by Benderson Development. They did a $30 million renovation where they basically ripped it down to the studs and rebuilt it. And it's now a Courtyard by Marriott Hotel, office space, and the headquarters of Phillips Lytle law firm. And then there's a pizza plant and a Starbucks as well. So this map, I thought it would be helpful to kind of show each of those buildings I was talking about to kind of understand the layout. So here's the Skyway, and then here's the 190. This is Main Street right here. I hope you guys can see my cursor. And then the arena is down here. So Explore and More is over here. This is Heritage Point. That's now just an empty lot that will be 2 buildings here. This is the North Odd Block, which is still just a pit, as you can see. The Longshed Building is here, and then the Carousel will be here. And this is HarborCenter here, and then this is the One Canalside building here. So I guess we can stop. Do we have any questions about the Canalside buildings that we've just talked about?
Yes, we do. Thank you. So one person actually benefited from your map. Let me just catch up here.
Okay.
Another person is asking if you know. Thank you. Another person is asking if you know how was Sinatra & Co. chosen as the developer, because last they recalled they hadn't paid taxes on significant holdings.
That would be a question for the city of Buffalo specifically. I know that they put out their development process is that they put out a request for proposals for the development of the site, and then developers are able to bid. And there's usually like a bunch of criteria. Like for this property, they probably said we'd like it to be mixed use, to include, you know, public uses along the first floor, like retail and restaurants, to kind of increase that public feel of Canalside. And then the developers bid, and they are selected. I know there was a lot of newspaper articles, maybe 2-3 years ago, about the tax issue, and I'm not 100% sure how that works out, and that would really be a question for the city.
Thank you, Angela. Next one. This person says, my opinion is all these new buildings are blocking the waterfront. Was nicer with just a skating rink and open park space. It's being overbuilt, but the carousel is nice though.
Yeah, I know there's a mix of opinions about that. When Canalside came about, it was from a financial settlement that was a settlement for the power plant reauthorization up in Niagara Falls, the Robert Moses power plant, because they take our water to create power. They had a chunk of money that was set aside for Erie Canal Harbor Development Company, which is a state organization that runs things down at Canalside. And these sites were all set aside as development sites. I know that we kind of got used to them being more of like a park-like area. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I think the outer harbor will remain more of the public park, like outer harbor kind of area for us to enjoy the water. There is public access along the water that will be preserved. The public access along the canal where the towpath was, which is where that will always be public, to make sure that there is public access to the water as well.
Thanks, Angela. A couple more things, if that's all right.
Yep, that's fine.
Along with the canal side, this person is wondering, is there a point at which there will be too much at canal side, in your opinion?
I mean, if we got buildings that were all 20 stories tall, like HarborCenter, that could probably be too much. I think the things that they're planning right now, a lot of it, like a lot of Heritage Point is residential. And one of the goals for the city and for Buffalo Place and Buffalo Urban Development Corporation has been to grow downtown as a neighborhood. And so I think bringing residents will then help us have more retail and restaurants, and because we'll have more of that like base, people living downtown 24/7 downtown is what they call it, because, you know, a lot of times we say like downtown's dead after as soon as 5 o'clock, everyone goes home. And so having more residents will lead to more people being around. You know, now you see people out walking their dogs. And so I think having a good mix is good. And I think the market will kind of balance it out as well. Like we saw a lot of hotels popping up in downtown over the last decade. And I think we kind of reached okay, we have enough hotels now. Let's look at what else we need. So.
That makes sense. Thank you. Person is wondering, is the Naval Park involved in any of this construction?
So the Naval Park is not involved so much as in the construction, as they're located right here, kind of under this arrow. This is one of the ships right here. They did build 2 new buildings as well. One is for their museum, and then Liberty Hound, the restaurant, is located in the front half of their museum. And then this is a storage building that they also use. I'm not sure if they have any plans for additional expansion, but they're involved, I know, with programming and events for Canalside. They work together. They do a lot of events. You can go to concerts on the deck of the boat, that kind of thing.
Okay, thanks, Angela. Just 2 more questions and then we can move on if that's cool.
Sure.
Person is wondering, are there any talks of housing a visitor's office in any of the buildings?
Like a visitor center? Not that I know of down here. They do have, Erie Canal Harbor has like a kiosk. I want to say it's like right here along the water, where they provide information about things that are happening. They have the schedules. They can point you in the right direction for things. I'm not sure if there is plans to expand that, but nothing that I've heard outside of the Erie Canal Harbors.
All right, thank you. A person's wondering, how long did it take for the boat trip from Buffalo to New York, if you know that?
I believe it was 3 days, maybe 4. But they left here at like 10 a.m. and they got to Rochester at like 3. I think, don't quote me on that exact, but I believe it was about a 3 or 4 day, and that's pretty much like chugging along the canal. Like they were, it was a parade. There was people in each town waiting to watch the boats come. They set off cannons as the canal boats went through. So it was definitely more, ceremonial. Whereas, the song, the Erie Canal song, it's 15 miles on the Erie Canal. That was like a good day on the canal. So it would take, probably more like a week. But before that, it would take, much longer to get from New York City to Buffalo or vice versa. And so it really cut shipping costs and shipping time down. It was really the first, kind of transportation highway. They didn't have highways. They didn't have railroads yet. And so you were really traveling through the woods, often on mud paths, to get things shipped. And so this way they were literally shipping on ships, and it was much faster.
All right, thanks, Angela. And just because we have a lot of questions here about parking, and I think we knew that was coming. So folks are wondering, will Heritage Point have its own parking? Are there plans for parking?
So, yeah, as I was saying, that the stuff that this pit, the North Odd Block, there are plans for parking in there. Below grade, and then the buildings would be above those parking ramps. I don't know that Heritage Point has its own parking. Right now, there really is a surplus of parking in this vicinity because the big lots just off picture here where people park for hockey games. And so there's always possibility to build ramps, like turn those parking lots into ramps, maybe incorporated into buildings as well. There's also been there was some talk years ago about this lot here. If you can see my cursor kind of in the upper left corner, this is the parking lot for the Marine Drive Towers. They've looked at maybe putting a ramp there. They're making some improvements. There's some lots under the thruway through here that are really kind of unimproved areas. And I know Erie Canal Harbor right now is looking at putting some improvements in those parking lots. I'm not sure exactly what that would entail.
Okay, thank you. We can move on.
Okay. So just north of Canalside is Buffalo's largest building. The building was known as Marine Midland Center from 1972 to 1999. Then it became one HSB Center when HSBC took over Marine Midland Bank in 1999. And then since 2013, the building has been known as Seneca One Tower. The building was built between 1969 and 1972, 1.2 million square feet of space. It's the tallest privately owned building in New York State outside of New York City. The building was built as the headquarters for Marine Midland. It was built with a large plaza, which was a common modern architecture feature from that time period, but it makes the building less inviting to people on the street. It was kind of built like a fortress for the bank, both because there was this elevated plaza and due to the security measures for bank operations that were necessary. The building was also built over Main Street, so it takes 2 full city blocks. HSBC left the space in December of 2012. In 2013, other major tenants left the building, and by 2014, the building was 90% vacant. In 2016, Washington, D.C.-based developer Douglas Jamal and his firm Douglas Development purchased the building. They're working on redeveloping the building into a mixed-use complex. One of the interesting things that Douglas is doing is adding square footage to the building, which really, if you think about it, sounds crazy. It's the largest building in the city, and we're adding to it. But the additions that he's building are to help connect the building to the street on Exchange, Washington, and Pearl Street. So if you see this picture on the lower right, this is the corner of Pearl and Upper Terrace or Exchange Street. They're kind of both right there. He added this black part is what he added to connect the building to the street. Prior to that, where the red is where the building was, and this was access for like the armored trucks that would carry money between banks. And so it was really not accessible to the street. You really couldn't use it. It didn't, it was just a wall with sliding garage doors for those trucks to go in and out, and then just a blank wall otherwise. And so he added this area, which will be office space, an entrance for the residential tenants. And then I believe on the other side, there's going to be retail uses on the Washington and Exchange Street corner, helping to connect the building. People will be coming and going from these sides of the building, won't just be dead space anymore. In 2019, M&T announced that they will be occupying 300,000 square feet of the building. This will become M&T's technology hub. Some of the M&T space will be in this area that I just talked about on Pearl Street on the lower levels. And then they're also taking several floors of the tower. 43 North has moved into the building. There's several other innovation and tech companies that are moved in or announced that they're planning to move in. They're also building a co-working space on one of the floors. For those of you who don't know what co-working is when maybe you work from home, but you just need to get out and, rent a space for the day. Or maybe you don't need a whole office, but you want just a small room, a place to work, away from your house. They're very common in like New York City. There's one dig on the medical campus, has been in operations for the last several years. And then Buffalo also just got a new one on Ellicott Street. And so then this will be another co-working space, which I can see kind of being very popular based on trends with the pandemic. We're all working from home, or a lot of us are, and maybe a co-working space we might like to work in. So there's also residential tenants. They started moving in this past September. There's 115 apartments. It's a mix of studios, 1 and 2 bedrooms. There's also a food hall, which opened this fall in the former cafeteria space. They were open to the public. Since we went into the orange zone, I'm not sure, but they're also working on doing community events. There is a space in the lobby, and there's been a yoga studio that's been doing classes 1 night a week. There's hope that they can use that space for meetings, for other events. They're hoping to do outdoor meetings, outdoor movies, maybe play the football game out on the plaza. They've really made the plaza a lot more inviting. It used to just kind of be a barren area. And this picture on the right, the upper picture, is what the plaza looks like now. And they've put the black buildings, again, are new construction, and those are planned to be, little restaurants or retail, maybe a cafe. You could get some coffee and then sit out on the plaza, really making the plaza more useful. These are some pictures. On the left, this is from March, so I'm sure they've gotten a lot further since then, but this is the future M&T space along Pearl Street there. And then this on the right is the space where I was saying they want to use it for events. They can, fix it up, make it really nice. If you wanted to have a wedding there, it really overlooks the Main Street. It's kind of a cool view down Main Street. And then over here is the ballpark, so you can see baseball games when they are playing. This is where they've the yoga. I think it's on Wednesday nights, but that's probably canceled as well right now. These are pictures of the model units for the residential. They're really nice. They're kind of a neat view. This one kind of overlooks the thruway, which I don't know, maybe is not everybody's favorite view, but I was surprised you really couldn't hear, like it didn't sound like you were right next to a highway. So they did a good job soundproofing. The next building I'm going to talk about is the Statler Hotel. This is actually downtown's second largest building. It's around 750,000 square feet. The hotel is located on Delaware Avenue at Niagara Square. The hotel opened in 1923. Parts of it began to be converted to office use in the 1940s when WBEN started using it for their studio space. By 1984, the last hotel rooms were closed and it was completely offices. It was referred to as Statler Tower during that era. The ballrooms were still used for catered events during that time. In the early 2000s, the building went into bankruptcy and was placed up for auction in 2010. There was even talk of demolishing the building. Mark Croce purchased the building in March of 2011, saving the building and committing to redeveloping it. He began refurbishing the building. He started calling it Statler City, using the public rooms on the first floors for events once again. After Mark's untimely death last January, Douglas Jamal also purchased this building from Jessica, who is Mark's widow. She is planning to continue running the Statler City side of the business. So there still will be events and weddings once we can all gather for those events again. And then Douglas Development is beginning to plan for the development of the upper floors of the building. Work recently began on the exterior of the building. Mark Croce had been planning to do this work when he passed away. And so Douglas Development continued on this project with some minor changes. So the building's first floor exterior is being restored to how it looked in the 1920s with accessible storefronts and windows. If you had passed by the building the last probably 50 years, at least in all of my lifetime, you may recall there was kind of a pinkish stone exterior that covered most of the first floor. So they've removed that and they've replaced it with this stonework, what will look like stonework again, being recreated to bring it back to that original look. As for the upper floors, there's no definitive plans yet. It's likely to be a mix of uses, perhaps some hotel, some residential. Douglas Jamal has mentioned he'd like to see gaming in the building if the state does end up allowing that, depending on what happens with the convention center and the Hyatt Hotel, which Douglas Jamal has also expressed interest in purchasing. They may look at some of this building to support convention center uses. But right now it's kind of, he's developing those plans. Douglas Development's third building downtown is the former police headquarters at the corner of Church and Franklin Street. The building was built in the Art Deco style in the 1930s for the police department. In 2018, the police moved from this building to the former federal building on Court Street. This building is 130,000 square feet, and the plan is to convert the building into 92 studio apartments and 38 one-bedroom apartments. They're currently working through the permitting and approvals and pre-demolition or pre-construction phases. So this will be coming along very soon. And the final downtown Douglas development project is 61 Terrace. This property is what you see on the left. It's currently a parking lot with a ramp that connects the Skyway to the 190. It's at the corner of Pearl and Seneca Street. It's across Pearl Street from Seneca One Tower, and then Seneca Street from Pearl Brewery. So if you've been to Pearl Street Brewery, you know this area. You may have parked here. It's a common place to park when you go there. They have proposed a $42 million project that would be a 9-story building. The plan is to add parking. So whoever asked about parking, this is another place. They're looking at a 500-car parking ramp and then 4 levels of apartments, expecting to be about another 200 units. Really adding to the downtown apartment neighborhood. The project still needs to go through final design as well as permitting. It also will need to get approvals from the DOT, the Department of Transportation, because it is so close to the highway ramps. They really have to look at how they build the building, especially for example, when plows go through. If you can think about like slush getting thrown off the thruway, like onto your apartment windows, that's probably not a great, living situation. But they are looking at putting the apartments above the level of the highway. So it'll be interesting to watch the project proceed. So now I'll pause again. Do we have questions about any of Douglas Jamal's projects?
We do. First, we do have a comment about parking, which I'll read. Surplus, I'd have to totally disagree with that. There's a big problem with parking, sorry to say.
I'm going to disagree and recommend you go to the Buffalo Place website and read our parking study that we completed last year.
Thank you, Angela. Okay, so next thing I'm seeing is improvements being made to the One Seneca building are beautiful. And if I may add, I used to park right across from that for the past 2 years, and it's been really neat seeing that progress. Then we have never noticed the police building before.
Yeah, it's a neat building.
The next question I'm seeing, do you know what brought Douglas Jamal to Buffalo and why he's so interested in investing in us?
So I guess I'm not sure exactly who it was who first brought him, but it was in regards to Seneca One, and he's done a lot of development in Washington, D.C. He is originally from New York State, from downstate. And so once he saw Seneca One Tower and he came to Buffalo, he really just fell in love with the area. He's bought a house. He lives kind of in the Park Meadow neighborhood of Buffalo, and he really is committed to the area. He's really kind of I would describe him as kind of like a Buffalo guy. When you see him, he's always in jeans and sneakers, usually with a baseball cap. He's very involved in the projects. Like I've been on a couple tours walking through Seneca One, and he's always there kind of, keeping an eye on things, which I think some construction people like, and some construction people might be like, just let it do our job. But he's very involved. He really seems very committed to the area. And it's interesting to see someone with that kind of money be just seems like a regular Buffalo guy. Like, you know, it's kind of nice.
Oh, that seems really nice. We have two more comments, if that's okay, and then we can continue. One person said, need more restaurants in the area. Agree.
Yeah.
And then we have, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I worry too about restaurants because of the pandemic effect on the existing restaurants that we do have. But as I said, building that critical mass and getting residents, I think will really help bring about other retail and restaurants and other services. Like, we don't even have like a laundromat downtown or dry cleaners, you know, other things like that too. I think will continue to grow as the population grows.
Oh, thank you, Angela. Last thing I'm seeing is, how about a shuttle service around Canalside, a trolley perhaps?
Yeah, there's been some talk about shuttling people from parking to, you know, bring them to Main Street, that kind of thing. I haven't heard anything specific about a trolley. It would be really interesting to see something like that develop. You know, they have them in Niagara Falls that kind of bring you around to the.
Okay. Now we're good if you want to continue.
Okay. Next, we're moving to a project on the east side. The Northland corridor was originally developed as a manufacturing center along the New York Central Beltline. It was one of the most extensive industrial areas on the east side of Buffalo. Just to kind of get your bearings, on the north part of the site here, and then Grider. And so just to the north here, that's where ECMC is. And then Northland kind of goes through the middle of the site, and then Ferry is down here on the south. And so it runs between Grider and Fillmore. And then this curvy line, that was the Beltline Railroad. And so you can see how these factories kind of developed along the railroad corridor. And so this was a very important industrial area. It's also a very walkable area because when these factories were being developed, people were walking to work. So there's housing very in close vicinity to these areas. It's also near ECMC, Mount Olive Baptist Church, several public schools, including the new manufacturing school at Burgard High School. This corridor was home to Niagara Machine and Tool Works, and a couple other industrial businesses. The project is a partnership between Buffalo Urban Development Corporation, Empire State Development, and the New York Power Authority, and the City of Buffalo. The project began in 2015 and consists of 35 acres, so everything that's shown in the red on this map, transformed into an urban business park focusing on advanced manufacturing, clean energy innovation, and workforce training. The Northland Workforce Training Center is a key component and a key anchor of the business park. The center provides training to provide residents with the skills needed. Manufacturing was, you know, to, you know, Bethlehem Steel or Republic Steel and pretty easily get trained to do their job. But now things in manufacturing are a lot more high tech. And so you need just a little bit more skills and training to be able to do these jobs. And so the Workforce Training Center is really there to meet that need, helping to meet the disconnect and train them to be able to work in the industries that we still have. Buffalo does still have quite a bit of industrial. It's just not the, you know, big smoky steelmaking of the past. So Buffalo Manufacturing Works has moved into the Northland corridor along with other private manufacturing businesses. I just saw an article over the weekend that I believe they're at 100% occupancy. They've leased 100% of the space. So now they're looking at kind of expanding into some of the other parcels through this corridor. The Albright Knox Museum also moved into a space here for their the Albright Knox is undergoing a major renovation project. They are closed for 2 years, so they've opened a space at Northland. So this picture here on the left, that is the Northland Training Center, which they are using to train people, as I mentioned. And then on the right here, this is one of the exhibits that the Albright Knox has done at Northland. Because it's a big old warehouse space, there's a lot of space for like very unique art. And so I recommend checking them out if you do get the opportunity. Next is the Richardson Olmsted complex, the former state asylum on Forest Avenue between Elmwood and Grant. This is my absolute favorite building. I know you can't really see it, but this picture here behind me is actually the Richardson Towers. It's my absolute favorite. The building was designed by Henry Hobson Richardson in 1870 and is often considered by most architectural people to be his grandest project, his opus. The grounds were designed by Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert to connect with Delaware Park and Richmond Avenue and really be a part of the city's parks and parkway system. The campus consists of the Central Tower building and then 5 ward buildings for patients along each side. The buildings housed psychiatric patients until the 1970s, and portions of this building were used for offices until 1994. Efforts to preserve and renovate the buildings began in 2006 after the Preservation Coalition of Erie County filed a lawsuit, which resulted in New York State establishing the corporation and committing $100 million towards the rehabilitation of the building. In 2013, the South Lawn landscape on the property was restored to be closer to Olmsted's original plans. In 2017, Hotel Henry Urban Resort Conference Center was opened. It's called Hotel Henry because the architect's first name, Henry Hobson Richardson. So Hotel Henry got its name from that. The hotel also operates 100 Acres, which is a restaurant and bar. They also host events on the lawn, including jazz concerts. They have Paella Fest. It's really been a remarkable transformation. And then here are some pictures. This on the left here is one of the hotel rooms. On the right, this is a common question I feel like people have about the building is, what's up in those towers? And it's really nothing. It's just a ladder to the top. There's no space up there. It's kind of disappointing when you learn that. So sorry if I just burst anyone's bubble. This is another space in the hotel here on the left, which you can, reserve if you wanted to have a meeting. They do set up like events and stuff in some of the smaller kind of nooks and crannies of the building. This is one of the rugs on the right here. I just think it's interesting because it's H, so they you can see the H's. They kind of went with the Henry Hobson motif, and kind of even some of the carpeting matches the Henry. This is the 4th floor. This was formerly the chapel of the building. Now it is used for weddings and banquets and spaces that you can rent out the space. And then this picture on the right is from Enlighten, which they did a couple summers ago, where the BPO played a concert and they lit the building, and the lighting would change with the music. It was very, very interesting to watch. Do we have any questions about Northland or Hotel Henry?
We have a person, if we could go back to the Northland corridor map.
Yep.
They are wondering what the green dots on the map mean.
I think those are trees. because they're part of the project is also to improve the space. These were industrial areas, and so improving streetscapes so that it's to make the neighborhood, which is pretty walkable, more inviting to walk along a tree-lined street as opposed to, just with the industrial building.
That makes sense. So that's all the questions regarding that part, Angela. Thank you.
Okay. Next, I want to talk about Elmwood Crossing. This is adaptive reuse of the site of the former Children's Hospital on West Utica, Hodge, and Bryant Streets in the Elmwood Village. The project is a joint effort of Seneca and Company and Ellicott Development. Children's Hospital of Buffalo has been located in this area since the late 1800s. The former hospital campus is 8 acres with over 600,000 square feet in 8 buildings. Plans for Elmwood Crossing include a hotel, a grocery store, a daycare center, a health and wellness center, residential townhomes, condos, apartments, retail on West Utica and Elmwood, restaurants, and commercial office space. This shows the plans for the site. So right here is Elmwood Avenue. This building here was the main hospital building, what you would think of. Here is the Gallagher parking ramp, which has been there for a while, is now part of this development. And then this is Utica up here. And so this blue on Utica is planned to become a grocery store with plans for apartments above the store. Next to the ramp down here is plans for a daycare center. I believe they're in talks with EduKids to bring them here. This yellow is planned to be apartments, and then the red will be the mixed use buildings. This building here, which is currently under construction, is the first new building on the site. There was a parking lot here on the corner of Bryant and Elmwood. The building is 5 stories tall and will be ground floor retail and then office space on the second floor and 23 apartments on the upper floors. 5 Star Bank is planning to be located with a branch on the first floor here. So you might be thinking, if they're redeveloping Children's Hospital, where did the hospital go? The hospital moved to High Street on the medical campus and is now known as Oishei Children's Hospital. The new hospital opened in November of 2017 after nearly 2 decades of planning for the hospital. The old Children's Hospital was outdated and had a lack of modern amenities. Moving to the medical campus helped bring it closer to the other hospitals. It's right next to Buffalo General and Gates Vascular Institute, which is the old Millard Fillmore Gates Circle, and then Roswell Park. They had looked expanding and improving Children's Hospital on the old site, but residents in the Elmwood Village were afraid that it would change the character of the neighborhood. So they chose the site on High Street. Construction began in 2014. The John Oishei Foundation donated $10 million to the project, which cost about $350 million in total. The hospital is 12 stories and contains 400,000 square feet of space and 185 hospital beds. The hospital is one of the only freestanding hospitals dedicated to children in New York State. We think it's very common to have a children's hospital, but we're actually really lucky to have the facility that we have here. It's also a level 1 pediatric trauma center, which is actually one of the only ones regionally. The next closest would be Syracuse and I believe Cleveland. It also has more modern amenities and a more simplified layout since it's all one building. The old hospital had kind of had additions put on through the years and they kind of made do with their existing site. But now everything's more, makes sense and layouts are better. There's very beautiful playrooms inviting areas for parents to wait and for the children to relax while they are in the hospital. So the hospitals on the medical campus are all teaching hospitals. And where do most of the medical students come from? They come from UB Medical School, which is also known as the Jacobs School of Medicine and Biomedical Sciences. The med school actually dates back to 1846. It's one of the oldest medical schools in the United States. Historically, the medical school was downtown, and they were actually on High Street next to Buffalo General in 1893, and then in the 1950s, they moved to South Campus on Main Street in the northern part of the city. So the school moved back downtown to the medical campus in the spring of 2018 with the opening of the new medical school on Main Street. The new school is a very large building. These pictures kind of show you the massing of the building. On the left is 2007, and on the right is from today. This is looking down Allen Street towards Main. And you can see this on the left, this was the Allen Street subway station, which is still there, but it's incorporated into the building. The school, the building cost $375 million to complete, and the school enrolls around 850 students annually. They're a mix of medical students, masters, PhD, and then undergrads. The location on the medical campus helps connect research and training to the hospitals and the clinical partners, hoping to continue to expand and improve healthcare for everyone in Western New York. Do we have any questions about the hospital sites?
We do. One person is just confirming, so is that part of the UB Medical School?
Children's, or that is the medical school, the building?
Okay, yes.
So
Allen.
Yeah, so that's the medical school moved. They're no longer on South Campus. So students may have, especially undergrads, they may still have classes on South Campus or on North Campus for their general education credits, that kind of things. But all the medical school classrooms and supporting research labs have moved downtown.
Okay, thanks, Angela. This person said just had a different name, so wasn't sure. Makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a comment that says the old Millard Fillmore Gates Circle is not part of the medical campus. It's now expensive housing.
Yeah. So Gates Institute, or I think it's called Gates Vascular Institute, is the old Gates Circle Hospital. They've moved to the medical campus as well. The hospital was actually imploded. It was kind of cool to see on a Saturday morning back in 2015. They imploded the old hospital, and now there's Canterbury Woods senior housing, and then they're developing some other housing and mixed use on that site as well on Gates Circle. Yeah, the Gates name came. And they changed the name as well. Like it's not just Children's Hospital anymore. It's Oishei Children's Hospital. It's not just the medical school anymore. It's the Jacobs School of Medicine. So.
Very specific now.
Yes.
We have another comment about parking, if I may read it.
Yep.
LOL, I must be obsessed with parking today, but parking is a huge problem in that area, even for local residents and employees.
Yeah. And I think they doubled the size of one of the parking ramps there to try to relieve some of that. They've been working, especially the Fruit Belt. Many of those houses in the Fruit Belt, they don't have driveways because they're, the old style of housing. And so a lot of those residents maybe park on the street. And now, people who work on the medical campus are now parking in front of their houses, so the residents don't have places to park their cars. And so I know that it's something that the city has really been working on. They're doing residential permit parking. So on some of those streets in the Fruit Belt, you can only park if you're a resident, and you get a tag or a marker to mark your car to show that you are a resident. I know it's something that we're really working on. But another thing too, particularly with the medical campus, Go Bike Buffalo has done a lot for working to get people out of their cars. One of the hopes, with the Allen Street subway station being right there, is that people can take the train. I know BNMC, the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus, has been working to get people to explore other mobility options, whether it's the bus, maybe connecting people to carpool, which I know can be difficult because say you're a nurse and you work third shift, it might not be as easy for you to find someone to carpool with, but connecting people to be able to better carpool. I know that's something that the city and BNMC and everyone really continues to work on.
We have one more question about this part and then a couple just general ones.
Okay.
So I know it's 11:05 and I want to be mindful of your time. Can we continue or do you want to pause?
We can continue. I had a couple more projects to talk about too. I don't know.
I'm so sorry, Angela, then go for it.
That's okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, if people are okay with continuing, I sorry that it's longer than I expected, but
No, I was so sorry. You did so much research. I don't mean to cut you off. Please, by all means.
That's okay. Next, I wanted to talk about 500 Pearl. This is a creative, adaptive reuse of the former Buffalo Christian Center site. It's at the corner of Pearl and Tupper. Buffalo Christian Center was built as the Fraternal Order of the Eagles in 1914 by the significant architectural firm Eisenwein and Johnson. Because it was built to serve the needs of the Eagles and their social spaces, it didn't really lend itself to a viable redevelopment or reuse. It was used for the Buffalo Christian Center for many years, and they had kind of changed some of the historic spaces, but it was still basically like big spaces that really don't work for apartments or offices. So the building was at risk for sitting vacant, continuing to deteriorate, or worse, to be demolished. The redevelopment by Ellicott Development was a solution to reuse the historic building by adding new uses to complement it. So the building has been restored. They fixed up the terracotta. They put a new roof. Everything inside has been restored back to some of its old grandeur. There's one of the meeting rooms on the upper floors had these beautiful skylights that had just been covered by a drop ceiling, and those are now open. Everyone can see them again. And so these repairs helped protect the building for the future and allowed the building to continue to be used as social gathering spaces. And so they attached this 12-story building to the rear of the building. It's kind of hard to see. You can't really see in this picture, but they are connected in the back. And so the new building complements and uses the Buffalo Christian Center to support it. So the use of the pool is the pool for the hotel, banquet spaces. The former Forbes Theater will now be used for events and concerts. There's meeting rooms, banquet spaces. And then my favorite reuse is they reopened the bowling alley at the Buffalo Christian Center. And it's now called Spare Lanes, which brought bowling back to downtown for the first time in a long time. When you look at old maps, you see a lot of bowling alleys, and there wasn't any for a long time. There's a 110-room A-loft hotel. There's 12 high-end apartments, 52,000 square feet office space, and 11,000 square feet of retail and restaurant space, and then parking for 380 vehicles. There's Patrick's Rooftop Bar and restaurant on the roof, and then several restaurants on the first floor, including WXYZ, Fresh Catch, and Vice is about next off. This is the view from Franklin Street. So it's just off picture, but the Buffalo Christian Center would be on the side here. And then this is the view from the roof. So once we all can go back out to bars and restaurants, I recommend stopping for a sunset cocktail just to get this view. It's so pretty. Next, I wanted to talk about AM&A's. This building is at 377 Main Street. It was the main store for the regional department chain, Adam, Meldrum, and Anderson's. The company was first founded in 1867 and was originally located across Main Street, where the Main Place Mall is now. In 1960, they moved into the former J.N. Adams store, and this became their flagship store. The store also included the Yankee Doodle Room, which was a restaurant. AM&A's was bought out by Bon in 1993, and the Bon-Ton closed this store in 1995. In 1998, the store was briefly used as Taylor's, which was a more upscale clothing line, which was lasted for less than a year. After a decade of being vacant, the building was put on the National Register of Historic Places in 2009. At that time, Rocco Termini was looking at converting the building into offices and apartments. That plan fell through. He decided to focus on buildings across the street and the Hotel Lafayette. And so the building is 375,000 square feet and is an expensive redevelopment project due to its size. So in 2014, the building was purchased by Landco H&L, a Chinese investment group, which is based in Queens. They announced plans to put a Wyndham Hotel in the building with 340 hotel rooms, 2 restaurants, a nightclub, an arcade, retail space, banquet space, and a pool and spa in the basement. To make the building more viable, they planned a 10-story atrium in the center of the building to allow window and light to the interior room. One of the reasons the building was so expensive to redevelop was that it contained a lot of asbestos. The asbestos abatement alone cost $8 million and began in 2016, but had frequent stops and starts for a variety of reasons, including a lack of payment and a lack of following asbestos guidelines. The abatement is now complete, and a portion of the atrium was carved out in the interior. Another issue with the redevelopment is that there's a tunnel under Washington Street, which connects the store building to what used to be the warehouses across the street. Deterioration of the tunnel has led to this block of Washington Street being closed for more than 2 years, making the site even more of an eyesore for downtown. The company that owned the building underwent some changes in management. There were a few lawsuits. Eventually, this past year, a new owner emerged. That's 377 Main Realty Incorporated. In May 2020, the hotel was dropped from the plans. They're proposing instead retail and restaurants for the first floor, office space on floors 2 to 6, and 40 to 60 apartments on the upper floors. Savarino Companies has been hired as the general contractor for the project. Savarino really gives the local connection, putting a little more confidence in the project moving forward, because it's kind of stagnated. They're planning to rebrand the building as the J.N. Adams, named for the store that was there prior to AM&A's. I obviously couldn't talk AM&A's in December without at least mentioning the Christmas window displays. The windows are an important part of several generations of Buffalonians' Christmas adventures. People would flock downtown to see the windows. And the windows have been on display in various places downtown. Most recently, the Hyatt has had them. Unfortunately, the Hyatt is closed right now, so they will not be on display. So I wanted to make sure to include some pictures so you guys could see them. And then this is a picture of me with Santa and Mrs. Claus at breakfast with Santa at the Yankee Doodle Room, which is one of my favorite childhood memories. Next is another project that's very close to me. It's literally across the street from my apartment, and I can hear the construction sometimes. This was a city-owned parking lot at 201 Ellicott Street. The city put out a request for proposals. Simonelli Real Estate was the winning proposal, and they're building 2 buildings on the site. The first is the 5-story building that will include 201 apartments. The second building is a Bray Miller Fresh Market and a warehouse for their wholesale business. It's been a long goal of the mayor to have a grocery store downtown to support the downtown residents. I've referred to this as Angela's grocery store because it's across the street from me, and I will definitely be shopping here once they open. Things are moving along. They're supposed to open at the end of next year for both the apartments and the market. Here's some super exclusive photos that you won't get anywhere else. This is the picture from the window next to my elevator. The left, that's from last September of 2019. And this is from last week. So they're moving along pretty well. This is the apartment building here. And last but not least, I wanted to talk about our new Amtrak station. The train station is on Exchange Street. It just opened earlier this month. People have been getting off of the trains at this location since the 1850s at the earliest. This was a $28 million project. It replaced the small little station that was built in 1952. The new station is 4,800 square feet and has a converted covered platform to provide protection during weather. It's closer to the street, has better access and visibility. There's more seating, more parking, and designated drop-off and pickup areas. This is another view of the interior when they're having the press conference to open it. And now you might be asking, okay, but what about the old train station? And I purposely did not talk about Central Terminal today. And that's because they have a public meeting coming up next week on December 9th at 6 p.m. And for more information about that, you can go to www.buffaloterminalplan.org or check out Central Terminal Buffalo's Facebook page. And they'll be talking more about their plans. They recently hired a new executive director she was actually responsible for the redevelopment of Hotel Henry. So good things should be happening there soon as well. Okay, now we have questions.
Angela, that was awesome. Thank you for taking your time to do all that research. Wow. So we have a couple comments here. I'll stick with the ones that you just talked about and then expand. We have loved the windows, the AMAs.
Yeah.
We have some of the AMA's Christmas windows were displayed in the village of Lancaster. I don't know if that's happening this year.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's happening either. Hopefully.
I know. All right, let me just catch back up here. Give me 1 second, please. We have somebody who's wondering if you can speak about the rail extension between the Amherst UB campus and the Main Street campus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so NFTA has been working on expanding the subway. So as you probably know, right now it goes from downtown to South Campus of UB at Main Street. And plans are to go up past UB North Campus to, if you're familiar with the Amherst area, past the library and the senior center on Audubon, and then up to where the 990 is. And so it would extend it. It would basically, I believe it's more than double the length that it would be. It would be an at-grade rail right now, I believe, is what they're looking at. They're in the design phases. So they're looking at the design, looking at the environmental impacts, that kind of thing. And if you email me at buffalostreets@gmail.com, I can send you to their website and the link to their plans to give you more detail on that.
Awesome, thank you. Next question, can you just remind us who built the carousel at Canalside, please?
It was Spillman Engineering from North Tonawanda.
Thank you. We have a comment. Canalside is easily accessible by public transit, but the outer harbor is not.
Yes, I agree. There is a ferry that takes you across during the summer. The ferry unfortunately did not operate this summer. That's something that I agree. They need to work on improving that. It's I've ridden my bike, the Ohio Street bike path, and it's nice, but then you have to go over that rail bridge, and it's not an easy bike ride if you're not an avid biker. But so I agree that's something that they do need to really improve access to the outer harbor. And I think that that's something Erie Canal Harbor has really begun to think about now that, things are, the inner harbor is kind of moving along. Now they're kind of focusing as well on the outer harbor.
Thank you. Next thing, does Northland have any apartments for out-of-town visitors who are going to ECMC or ECC?
I am not sure if they have. That's something I'm not sure. If you email me, I can put you in touch with people there if that's something that you're looking for. But I know, like, on the medical campus, there's the Kevin Guest House, which kind of lets like families who have people in the hospital kind of stay there. But I'm not sure if there is anything like that near ECMC. Perhaps there should be, and perhaps if there isn't, they maybe should think about that, adding that to their plan.
Thanks, Angela. Next thing, are there any plans for a decent hotel in the area around the medical campus?
So there is a hotel. I can't think of what it is. There is one hotel right now. The former Trico building, one of the plans for that was to bring in a heart hotel. That project unfortunately has kind of stalled yet again. But a lot of people stayed downtown in the downtown hotels, because it is easy to take the train, or there's service as well along Washington and Ellicott Streets to get up to the medical campus. I'm not sure if there are plans for additional hotels. I think we've kind of reached capacity for hotel rooms, but maybe as things continue to grow.
Okay, thanks, Angela. We have like a handful of things left. Is that okay if we continue?
Yeah, I'm okay if people are okay with staying on.
Okay, I just want to make sure I don't want you to feel like you're a hostage to us.
Yeah.
Next person is wondering, do you know what the progress of the Northtown Plaza rebuild in Amherst is?
So I will say, so I grew up up there, spent a lot of time at Northtown Plaza. And the first time I drove by this past summer, because I don't usually go up there much anymore, and I saw it demolished, it like shocked me. So they're working on a redevelopment. I believe their buildings are being constructed right now. There's supposed to be like an LL Bean coming, a Public Espresso, which is a coffee shop that's located downstairs from me right now, and a bunch of other businesses that are planning to locate up there. This is the next to Whole Foods. If you're not familiar with the area, it's where Whole Foods is now, and I know construction's continuing. I haven't heard any major updates other than that.
Okay, thanks. Next we have What about the Native American project across from the casino, maybe a gas station?
Yeah, so there was an old like warehouse there. It was just kind of a one-story warehouse. They've demolished that, and I've heard that they're putting in a gas station that would be like a Seneca One stop if you've been to any of the other on the reservation gas stations. That they're kind of like a mini mart. There's definitely a mini mart component to it. It will be confusing that if it's Seneca One stop and then there's Seneca One Tower, might end up getting a little confusing. But I know they're working on construction of that right now.
Thank you. Next thing we have is any info on Silo City changes?
Yeah, so I don't know a ton about the whole process. I know they've been accused of being very secretive about it. So Panasonic was in there and was working with Tesla to create the solar panels. I think Panasonic has kind of scaled back their operations a little, but I don't know how much of that is pandemic related, as opposed to what's happening. So I don't know a lot of details, sorry.
That's okay. Next thing we have is FYI, when we get back to Canada, there's a Carousel in Port Dalhousie Park that costs only 5 cents.
Oh, nice. That's good to know.
Ooh, next question, Angela, a lot of pressure. Final decision on Buffalo Niagara Convention Center, remodel or move?
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with that. I know they put out, they did a study and they looked at, I think, like 7 or 8 different sites. The 2 winning sites were a site near the arena down in that part of the downtown, and then the other one was an expanded convention center that would take up part of the block across the street from the existing convention center. I think the pandemic affects a lot of convention business, and I don't know what will happen. I know most of the professional organizations I'm a part of, have switched to virtual conferences because of the pandemic, and I don't know if large-scale conventions will be as much of a draw anymore post-pandemic, and I think everything's kind of on hold with that right now. I think Douglas Jamal taking over the Statler, and if he does end up taking the Hyatt as well, there may be opportunity to kind of use parts of those buildings. I mean, the Hyatt already has, a lot of convention business as well with their conference rooms and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't really know what the answer is. I think having a convention center close to other amenities is important. I know convention business is a big draw for cities' economic development. People come, they're spending nights in hotels, they're spending food, other stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Definitely will be. I've got one more question here and then a bunch of thank yous. So the last question I'm seeing is, are there any plans for the old Freezer Queen site?
So that's a site on the outer harbor. There were plans, and he announced kind of at the beginning of the pandemic that he was no longer moving forward with that site. He was looking at apartments, and I wonder the viability of apartments out there. If you've ever been on the outer harbor during the winter when the wind blows through, it just doesn't seem like you would want to live there, and even though you're inside, and it just I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens. That project didn't play out. I know there's been a couple different proposals, but I don't know specifically what will happen.
Okay, time will tell. Well, Angela, I am seeing, let's see, very interesting class. Angela is very knowledgeable. I
Thank
have
you.
great presentation. Thanks. Amazing, wonderful presentation. Thank you. Many thanks. So thank you, Angela. It's always a blast working with you.
Thank you. And yeah, if there's anything that I didn't cover, feel free to email me and ask questions. And if I don't know the answer, I can point you the right direction.
Definitely. So everyone, thank you for being on with us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And Angela, we'll catch up offline at some point. And thank you again. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.